broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar for BIM Show Live. My name is Marie Grieve from Costello Palmer Communications, and I'm here today with Rob Charlton from Space Group. Rob is the CEO of Space Group, which is running BIM Show Live this year, and he's one of the co-founders. So what we're going to do this afternoon for about 45 minutes is just give you some really helpful hints, tips, guidance on what we're looking for in a winning paper for BIM Show Live. So I'll just hand you over to Rob. Please do put your questions forward. We'll have a look at them at the end, or if you've got something pertinent, put a flag up and we'll find it as we go.
Okay, thanks Marie. Good afternoon everyone, and thanks for turning up. I think the most important thing is on the bottom of the page there that the call for papers closes on Thursday, 16th of November. And what we know from past experience is that everyone leaves at the last minute. I'm guilty of that myself, so there's probably a few more days before people start thinking about this, because there's always a mad rush in the last 24 hours, even less than that sometimes. But what I want to do is just give an overview of just press the button there. Sorry. There we go. So yeah, Viva Las Vegas. So a lot of people are out in Las Vegas at the moment. So those of us that are left behind are probably going to have to put these papers together. And who knows, some of the people in Vegas might even decide to put their papers in themselves. But yeah, some of us have been behind. And actually, the original founders, along with myself, James and Adam, they've gone to Vegas, and actually I'm left behind, hence why I'm doing this webinar today. What I thought I would do is I need to set the scene in the first instance. So this is sort of the agenda that I plan to go through. And I think it's important that we do set the scene, because that gives the context of the event and what we're trying to achieve. Maybe give you how we've got to where we are now today, and a bit of history in the story so far. A little bit about what we're planning for 2018, and then we're getting into what the 4 streams are for this year, what is important to make a great class, then getting down to the nitty-gritty, you get on and submit your paper, and then one little last bit at the end. So in the beginning, these are these 2 characters, James and Adam, and myself. The 3 of us came up with the idea of having an event. And the idea behind it, going back to 2011 when we had the first one, was there was a similar sort of time of year when everyone was going out to Las Vegas. And at the time, there was what was starting to be called the UK BIM crew. And they were going out every year to Las Vegas, meeting up, talking about challenging in the industry, how we could do things different in BIM. And it was a very different world in 2011 because the government hadn't mandated BIM in the UK. So it was fairly much a bunch of early adopters who seemed to get together in Las Vegas. And when the guys came back from Las Vegas, they said, well, this is crazy that we've got to go all the way to Las Vegas to have a conversation as a community in the UK. So why don't we try and do something ourselves for the community and you know, do a bit of that over here. I think ourselves thought it was quite a challenge. We were never going to compete with Las Vegas and Autodesk University, but we wanted to do our own thing. So we set up with a vision of doing something in London, and we did the first one, which was 100 people at the Business Design Centre. And the idea was, it wasn't to be necessarily an educational session to teach everyone about BIM, because there was plenty of other people doing that at the time. It was more about the early adopters, what they were doing, sharing information, talking about the things which we thought were coming up. And that was really the background of the event. So it definitely hasn't ever been an educational event. It's very much been around challenge and what's the next thing. So we've always been looking forwards, learning from what we're doing now, learning from what we've done for the past, and looking forwards very much so. Okay, so the story so far, this is a bit of a trip down memory lane for me, and I've kind of pulling this together, was looking back at some of the slides, and we haven't got all of the slides from the past, but as I say, it went back to 2011 was the first event that we had at the Business Design Centre, and that was a real success. And I think what we realised then was there was an interest, and there was people that wanted to be involved. Only 6 months later, we did another one, and again, people were very interested. And then it started to get serious, and we hosted our first event at Park Plaza in London, and this was quite a jump in quality of venue. The Park Plaza is a fantastic hotel, and what we wanted to do was not only have the event but give it some personality, and this is when we started to build the personality of BIM Show Live. I think it must be about 300 people we had at this one, and you can see there we even had the DeLorean from Back to the Future. So we started, it wasn't just all about the learning and sometimes the presentations, but it was very much about the connections, and the people getting together was very important to it. So this is the event itself, and we started to realise how popular this was going to be. And what we found at this time was, well, we were as packed as we could be in that venue in London, and could we maintain it in that location? We actually realised that there was a drive to make it bigger. So the next challenge was, could we move it out of London, where obviously the delegate rate is very expensive, and let's kind of put some more emphasis on the content and invest in the content from that point of view. So we did actually move it to Manchester, and we had our first event in Manchester in 2014, and that was a massive success, a huge venue, and a great venue, and everyone followed us up there. It was a great couple of days. You can see there it was packed. We got a lot of support from a lot of our manufacturers and suppliers and software vendors, and a real success. And the venue was perfect for that, but the content was particularly strong. We really started to see a community build, and as much as the 2 days were important, the bit in the middle, what's become known as the BIM Show party, started to be a real success. And then we did another year in Manchester in 2015, and this was an enormous event, and we were getting close to 1,000 people. And you can see there in the background, we even had a Sinclair C5 with lots of smoke, and David Philp coming on stage on his Sinclair C5. I think at this point here we realised, or we started to feel that maybe we'd lost a bit of the what the event was about. It had become very educational. It was a great event, but because of the sheer scale of it, we were struggling to get some of the challenge and the early adopters and hearing some of that coming out. So I think at this point here we thought, well, actually let's just stand back and see what we plan to do going forward. And we actually had 2016, we had the year off in 2016 because we just wanted to see what was next. And then the next thing was, well, actually, if we got everyone from London to Manchester, could we get everyone to the northeast in Newcastle, which is where our headquarters of a space group who coordinate this event. And we got everyone to Newcastle this year, and we got about 450, 500 people there in the Boiler Shop, which is a great venue where the Stephenson's rocket was designed, and a massive success. We were really pleased, and we'd gone back to the kind of things that we were really focused on, which was about looking to the future, and we'd started looking at artificial intelligence and robotics, and really looking beyond just the traditional modelling and all those sorts of things. We were really going back to where we'd actually started out. One thing just worth mentioning is that why a space group involved, and what is space group's input on it. This is a not-for-profit, and basically what space group do is we underwrite all the costs, and fingers crossed we don't make a loss, and we hopefully break even. Last year we made a small loss, but certainly was worthwhile for what we actually got out of it. So again, that'll be the same process this year. It's very much the community's event rather than being any kind of commercial event that people can make money out of. And I think people at Space Group are frustrated party planners and enjoy the event over the 2 days. So what have we got planned for 2018? If I'm honest, the first thing, what we did learn, or what we have learned over the years with BIM Show Live, is that generally we find an approach that people like, and we don't tend to change it a great deal. There's always things that we can learn around the edges, but it went down very well. And one of the things that was particularly popular this year was the venue, and the Boiler Shop in Newcastle was a fantastic venue. It just sort of fitted with the whole culture of the event. And whilst clearly it wasn't built as a conference centre, it was fantastically popular as a location, and people just were wowed by it. It was clear it was built for building trains rather than being a conference centre. but people forgave some of the acoustic issues because of its location. So we're back to Newcastle, back to the boiler shop. Newcastle was very popular. I think people liked staying there and liked the middle day, the middle evening, which was great for everyone getting together. So yeah, so it's back to where we were last year, and a lot of it will be very similar to what we did this year. Things like some of the rooms weren't ideal, so we've resolved some of those issues. We've kind of got some additional rooms for the size and things like that. We're looking at addressing the acoustics. But generally, much of what we learned last year or this year will be flowing forward into 2018. So this is the three of us that sort of pull the event together. There's Adam on the left is our technology director for Space Group, and he is King Geek. And then you've got James, who is a spacer, used to work for Space Group, loaned out to Autodesk at the moment temporarily, but he'll always be a spacer. And then there's myself. So the three of us came up with this crazy idea of having an event which has grown, and we sort of pulled together all the thoughts and feedback we get off the community about how to put a great event on, which holds firms to the ethos that we've always wanted. So this is the headquarters of BIM Show Live. It's the Millstone. It's a pub in Newcastle, and this is where all of the great thinking happens, and this is where all the ideas come from. This has always been, over the years, this is where we've managed the event. And then, very importantly, this is the office on the right-hand side. You can see that's the corner that we sit in and sort of work through, and we do all the administration and picking speakers and things like that. All happens in the Millstone. So, what are the streams for 2018? What are we planning to do next year? And you might notice the four, and what we've decided to do is keep them the same as last year, because they went down really well, and it really hit where we wanted to be with the event. It really was about looking at the future and looking at challenge. So next generation is what it says, and I'll give you a bit more detail on that, but very much around looking to what's coming down the line. Stories, we want to hear about what people have been doing. Strategy is very important to make all of the above happen, and then what are we doing with all this great data that we're producing and delivering. So, as I say, in next generation, what kind of things are we looking for? This is always one of the most difficult areas, because we really are pushing the boundaries here, and a lot of the things that we're all interested in, some of it doesn't exist or people haven't got a huge amount of experience of. So this will drive the event. Many of the keynote speakers that we're looking to get along will be around this area, and will be people that have an interest. So, for example, last year we had someone from IBM who was talking about artificial intelligence. So we're really working hard to find those kind of people for the event. So the kind of things that we're looking for, and we're looking for people to write, kind of classes around next generation. Anybody that's doing anything on robotics, or has got a story to tell or some ideas around robotics. There is a lot of talk, and last year we had some keynote speakers around this and how building sites would be using robotics. We've got some things around digital printing on a large scale. Machine learning, artificial intelligence is huge going forward, and I just wonder how is that going to impact on us, and has there been any R&D done, and has anybody got any stories around that? We're increasingly seeing mixed reality, lots of different types of visualization. A lot of people have been doing a lot of things around VR. There's some people doing some really interesting things with HoloLens, but we haven't seen it necessarily come forward as a practical platform. What I will say is that, as I say, there's been a lot of VR. So if you are going to put something forward on VR, it's got to be challenging. It's got to be different. And then on generative design, there's been some really great things, and we had a brief look at this earlier in the year. But we looked at the bridge that was being printed. We looked at some things that Boeing were doing with panels and things in airplanes. So keen to see any ideas or thoughts that people have got on that. And then cloud. We know cloud is building momentum all of the time, and what kind of things is that going to have? What kind of impact is that going to have on the sector in the years ahead? And then the next part is often one of the most interesting bits. This is about, it's as simple as it says there, it's about people's stories. We want to, whilst we've been talking about the future, we also want to know about what people have done, the good, the bad and the ugly. It's not just necessarily all about saying what really great projects you've had and how successful they've been. Because of how the principle of BIM Show Live, we want to hear about the things that have gone wrong and the feedback we've had, and sometimes people have had thoughts of how things might move forward and it didn't quite work out like that. So the stories are exactly as they are. We want to hear warts and all, what kind of value has come out of those sort of stories. And there's lots of great things we can all talk about. Some of these stories have been going on for a long time. As I say, this proved very popular earlier in the year. So strategy. What's strategy about? There's a lot of organisations haven't just necessarily reacted. They've taken a longer term view. A lot of organisations such as universities or big real estate investment trusts have put a lot of effort in to put an infrastructure in place that's going to help them going forward. So these are the clients that have taken a long-term view of how digital construction is going to affect them. And what we're seeing with a lot of these organisations that have had strategies for a few years are really starting to potentially see some of the value of this and getting return on investment. It'll be interesting to see if people can come back with some objective information about return on investment. There's been a lot of subjectivity around it, and we've all been seeing the potential it's got, but really need to see have people done any studies around true return on investment. And then what will be really interesting to see is what does the construction business of the future look like? Have people got thoughts, ideas, or are organisations moving in certain directions that might help that to happen? So yeah, strategy is an interesting one. I think it's something that's often referred to as the fluffy stuff, but is absolutely necessary to put the framework in place to allow success over a long period. And then the old classic and favourite data. I think what's happening now is we're really starting to see how data can be used and will be used. A lot of clients initially started to use BIM as about a tool for predictability and reducing clashes and things like that. Now people are saying, actually, I've got a lot of information here and a lot of data, and we're starting to understand it. And at the same time, we've got artificial intelligence, we've got machine learning. People are starting to see those connections and the potential. And it's very early days, but there's a lot of people doing R&D and thinking about new ideas, and would really like to see some of that. And if people have got some of that to share, we would be delighted to see it. Things around coding, computational design, all very interesting stuff, and using that data intelligently. That's what we want to see. How is the data being shared? How is it being moved? What's it doing? Very importantly, what value is it bringing? And then the classic that we've all been talking about for many years is how is all that data going to improve asset management? And we're starting to see some clients and building operators using the data now for asset management, and it'd be nice to see what value are people getting out of that. Hearing all the challenges, and I know our BIM Technologies team have been involved in a lot of this, and it isn't easy and it isn't straightforward. So keen to hear about that, and keen to hear how people have got on with doing that kind of thing. So what does make a great class, and why do people turn up, and why do people listen? And this has been something we've watched over the last 7 years to kind of work out what people are interested in and why people turn up. This is ideally what we don't want, people at the front talking at them, and in particular empty seats, but we have had many really successful sessions. I think one of the first things to say, not necessarily what makes a good class, what doesn't make a good class. A sales pitch will be spotted very early. And if you imagine if you've just paid money to come to here and learn about different things, the last thing you want is a sales pitch from a software vendor or someone providing services. So really what you're up there doing is sharing. So I think what makes a good class is really to be as engaging as possible. Try and have as few PowerPoint slides as possible, certainly no spreadsheets, and try and involve the audience. We've seen some real successes where we've had several people on the stage, and that's gone down very well. I also think, and what's gone down well is a bit of personality in the classes themselves. We've had some with some humour in, and I think that goes down very well. The kind of audience that comes to BIM Show Live are up for that, and are happy to be a bit tongue-in-cheek at times. It isn't necessarily always a serious event. So we have had stormtroopers there. We've had an Ewok. So there was a year that there was very much a theme around Breaking Bad. So anything like that just breaks the norm and makes sometimes what can be quite a dry subject very interesting. I mean, one of the biggest sort of, I guess, surprises and shocks to us, and again, this proves how you can make some very traditional dry subjects very interesting. One of our most popular events last year, classes this year, sorry, was the one around the legal side of BIM, and it was basically a packed room, and there was a lot of interest, and it was put forward as one of the best classes. So it just proves that sometimes what might be perceived as fairly dry subjects, if delivered in the right way, can create real interest. So I think we need to put a lot of effort into the classes and not just do a normal slide deck. There's a lot of expectation with what a class is like. So we're getting on to submitting your paper. What needs to happen when you're submitting your paper, and what's going to get through, and what's going to sort of be seen by the judges. I've sat on a number of the panels over the years to decide what catches their eye, and I know this is something that we've talked about in the past, but an amazing session title, because if you put a fairly ordinary title, when there are always a lot of submissions that come in, a lot of them are the same. So really, one of the first things is just have a think about what your title could be. Make it engaging, make it interesting, and even make it humorous, because that sometimes does catch the eye of the judges. So that's the starting point. And then your synopsis. What I would say is, what doesn't tend to go down well is long reams of text about what your class is going to be about. You really just need to give a framework and identify the objectives and the story you're trying to tell. So I would keep it punchy. I would highlight the number of points that you're trying to get across. So say you take 5 highlights that you're trying to get across in the session, and you want to make it exciting, and you want to be able to demonstrate how the class is going to be exciting. If you can find something that has a history or is a story that people are going to be interested in. So, for example, last year we had the story of Revit, which went down really well. People are very interested in that. People like live examples, so if you can reference some of the projects you get in there. And then I think finally, just to demonstrate and talk about how you're actually going to deliver it, what's your approach going to be in the class. So I think in summary, you want a strong title. It wants to be a punchy synopsis, not long, and being able to demonstrate the interest and the excitement that differentiates your class from everyone else's. Because as you can imagine, we get a lot of submissions which are very much the same, often the very same subject, just being delivered by someone different. So really we're looking for something that stands out. And then finally, I'm just wrapping up, but one more thing is what we're doing this year, which is slightly different to what we've done in the past, an additional session. We talk a lot in our sector in digital construction about young people and how we've got a skill shortage. So what we thought we'd do is we've got a great venue. We've got a lot of clever people coming up to the northeast for a few days. So what we want to do is on the Tuesday before the conference, on the Wednesday and Thursday, we're going to have what we call an inspiration day. So often in schools we have people turning up with blue suits and brown shoes from business, talking to young people in their schools about careers, possibly careers in construction, and kids couldn't care less and aren't interested and often fall asleep. So what we're looking is to change the perceptions of construction, so they realise it's not all about wheelbarrows and trowels and bricks, that there are some other things going on, and there are some fantastically exciting careers, which anyone who's been involved with BIM Show Live knows or must know that there is some really exciting things. There's a lot of digital. We're talking about VR and cool headsets, which really engages the kids. So we're trying to change those perceptions. So the day before, we're bringing a whole load of school kids in. We're going to bust them in from all over the north of England, and we're going to do a whole bunch of exercises and tasks with them using the technology. So we'll have point cloud, we'll have hope to try and get hold of some robots with, as you can imagine, a lot of VR, all those kind of things that we can share with young people. Show them the models that we work on, maybe get some 3D printing, and excite them about our industry and show them some things that maybe they didn't understand was in our sector. We're also hoping to bring the teachers in, because often it's important they understand that construction is changing and has got something much more to offer. And then hopefully we'll bring some parents in so they can see that a career in construction can be something very exciting, and hopefully we'll attract some women into our sector, which we're very short on, and hopefully we can attract some new designers, engineers, all those sorts of things into our business. So that's just an addition into the week, which is increasingly becoming a bit of a festival of digital construction. So we're trying to expand it. We're trying to do more and more in the industry and make our impact on it. And hopefully, over the last 7 years, we've played our part, a little part in selling the great future that construction has, and how we've improved things over the last 5 to 10 years. So that's an overview of hopefully what you can all start looking at for a paper. I'm hoping that we get lots of papers and submissions for classes again, which we did last year. There was lots to choose from. I think what we noticed last year was the quality had gone through the roof. With having a year off, I think the market's matured, and I think this year, so earlier in the year when we selected our classes, we were absolutely blown away by the quality. So we're hoping we can make another step forward and have some great stories and some great thinking that can be shared, and lots of challenge. And in between that, we'll make sure we've got some fantastic keynote speakers and make the 2 days really worthwhile. So that's it from me. I'm happy to take any questions that you might have, and we can answer those.
Thanks, Rob. I thought that was really fantastic. It gave us a very nice overview of what the 4 streams are that people can actually submit their papers for. And when I was listening to that, kind of my 3 key takeaways were that you're looking for new ideas, something that's outside the box, that's something completely different, that's not come to us before, about future thinking, and really about the value of what people are bringing to digital construction. So some of the questions that we've had through were, the first one was about next generation, and what you'd said was you were looking at robotics, mixed reality, and cloud. And can you just expand when you said that VR, we've seen lots from VR already. So when we need something new from VR, can you give people an idea of what you're looking for?
Well, I think VR has been fantastic, and we've all worked out that actually it's relatively straightforward to take some sort of model, drop it into a platform like Unity, and we can walk around spaces. So that's pretty much been done. And what we're looking for is someone who's maybe done something beyond that, or done something slightly different, that maybe, we've seen some really great things with HoloLens, which is more around the mixed reality, where people are tagging objects, so it's that sort of thing. Maybe using VR in a way that isn't just around visualization, it might be around health and safety. So maybe it's more the practical application of it, rather than just saying, look, aren't we clever and we can walk around a building? Because I think a lot of people in the sector can do that. It's really what additional value will that have to the process and to construction.
Okay, one of the questions is, how many papers can you submit? Can you submit for 1, 2? How many presentations can you put forward?
The more the merrier. I think we're keen to see, if you've got the time to put them in, the judges will have time to look at it. So yeah, the more the merrier, to be honest. And there's no reason why somebody couldn't be doing 5 classes. If they're 5 fantastic classes, we would have to work through the logistics of that to make sure they weren't doubled up. But if someone's got a lot of great stuff to say and has been working on lots of different things, more than happy to see it. So there's absolutely no limit. There's no particular area that you've got to focus on. The more the merrier.
And another question is, what are you looking for in the actual synopsis itself on the paper? Are you looking for a headline, some bullet points, some takeaways?
I think we deliberately left it open. because often when you've got a very prescribed process, it's difficult to do that. So really, we didn't want to prescribe it. So if you wanted to put a video in, if you want to put some pictures in, if you want to put some bullet points in, if you want to write reams of stuff, that's fine. It's really what you want to put in, because actually often what happens is the submission tells us a lot about the individual and the class. We had a few videos last year, and they were great. It wanted to demonstrate a bit of creativity. There was humour in it. Yeah, I think we keep it totally open, and it's down to you, because that will reflect on the class that you're going to put in. So it's entirely up to you.
And one of the key words that I've noticed you've mentioned lots is value. So what value does BIM and digital construction bring to the project that they're trying to talk about? So are we looking for what the outcomes are and what the actual added value is that they've actually done?
Yeah, I think, if you go back several years when we started out on this, it was a bit of a leap of faith for people, and you could say, well, actually, let's make a look at BIM. We think it's going to save money. I think now we're at a place where it's mature, and I think we have to be able to demonstrate the value that it's brought, and how the outcomes have been improved. So there'll always be an element of looking to the future and lots of this technology and what it can bring. But it'd be great to see where projects have been delivered in different ways with better outcomes, and make it objective rather than just saying, this was really successful. Was it? What impact did that have? So I think it's the measurement side, the return on investment, and we all know that's challenging. You often feel the project's gone better, but if a project's finished on time, it's finished on budget or lower than budget, risks being reduced, it's better from a health and safety point of view, it's operational cost. If we can get some metrics, and there aren't many of them out there, that would be fantastic. So again, we're just trying to get those off other people. One area I didn't mention, which I think is somewhere where we could really do with some interesting projects and case studies, is around measurement and bill of quantities and dynamic cost planning. We've had a few of those over the years, but over the last 12 months, I've really started to see some surveyors and cost managers and project managers really using it. So there's a few I've already been nudging to put a paper in, but hopefully we'll get a few more of those. It'd be great to see what progress we've made as a sector around that sort of thing.
Okay, well, that's all our questions. Thanks very much, Rob. Just a reminder that call for papers does close on Thursday this week. That's Thursday the 16th of November, so you've got a few days left to get your papers in. If you have any more questions, please do message us via the GoToWebinar, and we'll answer any questions you have directly. But good luck, everyone, and we hope to see your papers coming in on Thursday.
Thank you very much, everyone.